Well, and so with that piece, because I think this is going back to the corporate L&D challenge and the journey you've been on along the way. I think this is one that not just corporate L&D, but I even think professors and back to my K-12 days, it is always hard to scale observational assessments. It is through analog methods. It's always something. I think back to when I was in the 8th grade class, you couldn't be with every single student all the time. It was always a challenge to see, do they actually have the ability to demonstrate the skills? And historically, as an industry, we've always struggled with, so how do we actually measure whether people can do it or not? It does put us in this precarious position where when people go, is what you're doing working?
That's
a lot
right.
of times it's,
well, yeah. So
we think so. I mean, we sure hope so. They're passing the test. They went through the stuff, but we don't really have any empirical evidence that they have improved or are actually able to do it. And I think that observation piece is that validation, even pre-generative AI.
Yeah, no, you couldn't agree more. And that's like, almost like me on my soapbox with, our industry is learning and development. There's lots of tools that focus on learning, right? Of pushing content, pushing learning to learners. There's, I would argue there's not a ton that are truly focused on like development. Can they actually apply what they just learned? And that's really where Bongo, hits home. And I think where we're quite unique is that we're, laser focused on, can that person take what they just learned and, apply
do something with it.
Yeah. Do something. Does it have a, and that's, I think again, with the AI being able to scale things, whether it's observational assessment or just that validation that they have truly learned it and can apply it. That's where, we're able to have L&D practitioners really, be able to be empowered and transformed into like doing all the tasks, if you will. Like that is like the old way of just being task oriented. The new way is if you will, is through Bongo being able to have a validation step that like, yep, learning actually happened and can be applied.
Learning occurred.
Learning occurred. Practitioners then can focus on, well, how can we take this and actually apply it to, business outcomes, right? Not just like checking the box of, yep, everybody watched these videos that I, bought.
Well, and going back to it, I think this is one of the things where, and for those who are watching who may be thinking, well, what is the role of the people? We will get to that. I promise I will save time to talk about that, because I get it can be threatening to go, wait a minute, I hear observation. Now I hear AI is being able to do this. That can incite some discomfort. And I get it. We'll talk about that. But I think, the point that you're talking about there is there are plenty of times where even in a business context, we don't know what skills actually are going to drive performance. And so it's almost a double whammy when you're trying to build skills and you aren't even sure whether the skills are built, because then you can't even validate, well, are those the right skills to drive the performance we're trying to drive? And by doing this well, you might be able to validate, look, we built these skills and we're still not seeing the problem change. So now we need to go back to the drawing board and either adjust the skills or maybe redefine, is there something else breaking down? This really does allow us to be more strategic problem solvers versus just, well, we did everything we think, but it's in a vacuum.
That's right. Yeah, that's totally right. And, I think another element of that Bongo, really has been working hard to help, tackle is being the measuring stick for skills, right? So, there's lots of tools out there, and skills is for sure a hot topic, but there's lots of tools out there that are, working towards self-proclaimed skills. I'm excellent at Excel, and my two buddies that are, I share a cube with also tell me that I'm excellent at Excel. That to me,
and I have a check mark on my LinkedIn profile that says
exactly
10 people have validated that I'm great at this skill.
That's right. And to me, that's just like rough, because that's just a total guesstimate of whether that, for the organization at least, whether that person truly possesses that that skill or that domain knowledge. And that's really where Bongo, what we're working towards on the macro level is, validating that people have skills, having it within a specific context, right? So
that was what I was just going to say. The other side of that is you may have a skill, but can you apply it in the specific context your organization needs? Because going back to this Excel thing, I'm good at Excel, but are you good at Excel for this purpose? Oh, well, no, I'm not.
Exactly.
That's a problem.
That's exactly right. And there's different versions. Like good at Excel, does that mean pivot tables, or does it mean balancing a spreadsheet or building spreadsheets or building a model? Like there's lots of different, I think, nuance. And again, with Bongo, you can be more of a measuring stick, specifically, for especially like power skills. So again, understanding, business process, understanding, or demonstrating interpersonal communication or how to communicate or articulate your knowledge. And there's a bunch of learning science too that backs, being able to actually articulate a set of knowledge is a much better representation of mastery compared to like a multiple choice exam.
And what's funny about that on the generative AI topic, I have a lot of folks in the higher ed space. To your point about this is a superior way to demonstrate skill. One of the big conversations is, technically students can now use generative AI to do a lot of their writing. Mm-hmm. And there was a bit of a panic around, oh no, how are we going to know whether they're good at this? And it's actually forcing the conversation to change of, well, was them writing actually demonstrating knowledge and skill? In many ways, there was a lot more diversity and superior ways to actually having that person show. And I just know this from, neurodiversity type stuff where it's like, some people can't write. Mm-hmm. So it was That's a terrible assessment of, well, do they actually understand? You could go ask them to do it and they could do it like no problem. But if you ask them, okay, can you put this in 10 bullet points in a paragraph? They'd go, I can't put those pieces together. So I think this goes back to this action learning of, it is a demonstratable way to show that people are actually talented and gifted in what they do, which opens all sorts of opportunity within an organization.
That's right, for sure. Yeah, and I think helping folks, if it's around assessment, Bongo can really help folks like get certifications or credentialed. But another huge element of, again, kind of our thesis as a company is providing a place to practice those skills. So there's, workflows for pure assessment where it's like they're on the hot seat, they have to respond, and then the AI will evaluate them. There's other workflows that are centered around helping and facilitating practice. And that's actually a really cool kind of factoid that people end up in our tool when they get feedback that's AI generated. They end up practicing that skill 3.5 times more compared to just pure human evaluation. And if you kind of double click into like, why is that the case? It turns out people, if it's AI giving them feedback,
psychologically safe.
Yeah, exactly. It's psychologically safe.
Psychologically safe.
Hardship of like, shoot, my boss is going to think I look silly or my coworkers are going to judge me. They don't associate AI as judgmental, which is a pretty awesome thing. And
which in many ways is funny because while it can carry bias still, it is objective in what it's saying. So it's not going, well, I just really don't like Josh's cow costume today. I think he's a little too unprofessional. So I'm going to be a little harder on him It's just looking at, what did you do? And here's my objective assessment of what you did.
That's right. And